So, Korean education is very hypocritical. While they tell us that they demand us to be the creative pioneers to lead the 21st century, the reality is not. Actually, they are making us the exact opposite. I almost fell for the trap, the illusion that we could be the best leaders by being the best students here. I'm a Korean, and I have lived in Korea for 18 years, 19 years straight, so I have lived my entire life in Korea. However, strangely, somehow, now I am applying to foreign colleges only. Many question my contradictory decision, that why I should dare and risk to go to the United States or any part of the globe except South Korea, while I have spent my entire life in Korea. So, in this speech, I must explain why I ultimately became disenchanted with Korean education and why I became a failure here, that I had no choice but to leave Korea. Korean education disencourages pioneering. What they do encourage, however, is confidence. So, the Korean education I see is that they view students as a simple cog, a simple apparatus of the entire system, rather than educating us to be the engineers of this system that the Korea is being run. So someone questioned me, who am I to make such grim predictions? After all, I must say that I'm pretty much an expert on this topic of education because I'm the student who has spent my entire life under the system of Korean education. And all of us here listening to my speech, after all, are also experts. However, the problem is that we do not question, we do not dare to question about the problems that the Korean education has. And today, I dare to. But before, what is a pioneer? That is the theme of today's TEDx. And according to Merriam-Webster, it says that pioneer is a person who helps create or develop new ideas, methods, etc. So to be a pioneer, I believe two qualities are necessary. One is to be creative, and the other is to be courageous. To be a pioneer, one must not only dare to, but also be smart enough to find new approaches to a pioneer. However, in today's education system, I must first describe the status quo of the Korean education. When we refer to education in other nations, typically we only refer to the public education. But in Korea, it is special and peculiar that there are two very distinct spheres of education, public education and private education. And there arises the another problem. The balance of power between these two spheres about two different aspects of education is totally imbalanced. The private education is very bloated, while the public education is menial. And I must say in this speech that both public education and private education discourages us to become the pioneers of this new century. So, before talking about the education system of Korea, I must go back to a little history. In the dirt poor 1960s and 70s, when, surprisingly, North Korea and South Korea had approximately the same level of economic development, it was the college graduates who led the development of the entire country. At the time, there were very few educated people, and to have a college diploma was naturally a sign that you were the educated with enough capacity to lead the entire nation. So at the time, the college graduates, who were very few in their numbers, and their clique led the entire development of South Korea. And they were the ones with all the social prestige and material success, which the rest of the Korean nation looked after. So, having been exposed to such historical context, unsurprisingly, many students still dream of becoming the graduates of those prestigious colleges. The so-called SKY, Seoul National University, Korea University, Yonsei University, the three most top prestigious colleges that currently exist in Korea now and then. And it is still a dream of every student 50 years ago and now, and it is unchanged. And the SKY is the one who ultimately controls the Korean education, not the public education or the central guideline of Korea. However, even though many students want to become the students of these universities, they only accept less than 1% of the entire student population. And due to such bargaining power, they are the ones who ultimately control what Korean education should look after, because after all the students dream of going into these universities. And these colleges, the SKY, stubbornly clings onto the hierarchical method of ranking students according to numbers and 9 different tiers. Only the top 4% will be awarded the top first tier, and this kind of scoring system reaches its climax at the KSAT day. This KSAT day, that is only held once a year in November of the senior year, is the climax of such an education system where the scores are the only concern and the primary foremost goal in this education system. In this KSAT day, it is very peculiar in the foreigner's eyes because all the police come out to the streets and take the students into the test centers with their motorcycles. The police control the traffic, and even airplanes are not allowed to take off because of the noise it makes. Not just that, the mothers will go to mass prayers to just show that their sons and daughters would have a good scores. And this is an example of a good score that a student will have, and that is the exact ticket that they could go to the Sky Universities. Well, then some question, why would this scoring problem be an exclusive problem only in Korea? After all, to evaluate students with the scores is the most convenient method, and this is not exclusive in Korea. United States has SAT, and almost all of the nations have their own exclusive scoring systems too. However, it is peculiar in Korea that the scores are the dominant and the exclusive factor in evaluating the students. Of course, Korean colleges would now say that they evaluate the student also on their extracurricular activities and non-academic factors, not only on their KSAT scores and their school exam scores. However, it is different that while the foreign nations usually evaluate students on a holistic method, our Korean colleges apply a punishing method, where a designated set of points are deducted if a student does not meet a certain condition. So if he does not score the top first tier on this KSAT and instead second or third, then automatically his qualifications are out and he would never have a chance to get into the sky. And that is the most of the cases under the education system of our Korea. So the public education system sadly became a slave of such score-centered evaluating system of colleges. It is not necessarily that the public education system of Korea itself is inferior. There are some positive changes being made by the legislators and the government. However, the sad thing is simply that colleges hold more power. So much of the teachers in the public education system, public schools, resorted to just teaching their students with prep books. And unsurprisingly, in many of the high schools in South Korea, simple test prep books already became the textbooks of South Korea. And the students and the parents want that because they know it is the most effective way to get into sky. The true meaning of education is long lost ago in this kind of Korean public education system. However, the another sad thing is that public education is never meant to be a trust-cramming education center. They could be never as effective as business academies, whose sole goal is to make these kind of higher scores. And the public education system now sadly became both meaningless and inefficient. And under such a historical context, it unsurprisingly gave rise to the private education sector. At first, it began as a small-scale, one-to-one tutoring, private tutoring. However, as the demand for this private education increased, it now became institutionalized businesses, and now they are just a billion-dollar industry. And I must say that these academies have been pretty much effective in evaluating and increasing the scores of these students. However, at the same time, I must also say that this kind of private education in Korea has left our Korean education in entirety more meaningless at the sake of the higher scores. I know all this because I'm an insider of this infamous Asian academy industry. Our family has lived in Mokdong, the district with the fiercest education fervor along with Gangnam. I have lived here 18 years, my entire life, so I have seen how my passionate little diligent friends ended up now after attending all these academies that exist in Mokdong. And not just that, our family has actually made a living out of this academy industry. It has been about 13 years since 2002 that our family has run a private math academy. So, having witnessed the industry at this size for about more than a decade, I know exactly what are the strategies and their thinking logics of the academies are really like. And I am confident to say they work against every optimal motive of the education that it must be. So, when we look at those private education centers, there are so many people that are currently attending these academies. However, contrary to popular belief, they do not really hold much of their resources or money in spending to develop competitive curriculum, contrary to profitability. To make just their students to train well and taking tests well is not a difficult task. So how do these academies exactly flourish when they do not exactly have much of their resources dedicated to teaching their students and teaching their students to become creative pioneers? It's because simply their size is big. When there are so many students and so many good teachers there, then the students, the prospective customers, naturally think that there can be nothing wrong with it. There can be nothing wrong with it, and simply looking at their size, the size becomes the merit of these oligarch academies. And these few academies, like Mega Study or other academies, becomes the one who control the private education industry. And their advertisements, their advertising strategies are also exactly suited to the ranking system of South Korea. There are so many competitors in the Korean education system, and the academies instigate our fear, our anxiety that we may fall behind if we don't attend these academies. And students know that they may be learning nothing from these academies. However, simply they attend these academies because if they don't, their scores will fall. And this is the many of the cases of my personal friends that I have witnessed. Although they know they are feeling really nothing substantive, they are still attending those academies. Why? Because the scores, at least, they guarantee it. However, in the process, they're losing their creativity and courage. So, if the education industry and the system of Korea is left like this unimproved, I must say that our future is pitch dark. In this system where the scores are the ultimate beauty, everyone is a loser. Private education is aggressively feeding into the college's demands, and the public education long ago lost its ability to offset such greedy goals. We don't question this college-centered educational environment of Korea because questions don't help us any into getting colleges. We should know how to answer, not how to question, to succeed in the system. However, now I believe it's the time to really question. And here arises the question, how to fix? Should it maybe break it entirely? However, today I do not have a complete revolution plan of the Korean education system. After all, I'm just a senior who have been just 19 years old, and this problem has been rooted for about half a century with complex socio-economic roots that has been in Korea. So I believe that it'll take about a few decades, if not a century, to break this entire system. Then what should we do during the transition period? Should we just perish under this educational system of Korea, which completely works against the ultimate goal of becoming pioneers, which the world demands? To such question, to the option that I took was to escape. The option I took was to escape of the Korean education system. However, even this escaping option about applying to foreign colleges or secondary schools is not an easy option anyway, because due to the economic hardships that our world is currently experiencing, the cost is very prohibitive, and the foreign colleges do not want Asians even more. There are so many Asians already applying and attending foreign colleges now that they are diminishing the quota for the Asian students around the world. So even the escaping option has become very hard for us to choose. So the ultimate option that I try to suggest to you is to be there, but beware of the system. Of course, I may be asking you too much because I'm asking your mind to be beyond such the system while your body is still being tied. Of course, the realistic concerns and the realistic demands of the colleges may inhibit you from being creative or courageous, because simply taking the road that all others have taken is much a traditionally proven, safer way to go. However, still, I urge you to take the road untaken. But exactly how? I don't know. And that's the kicker. This is the reason why I have given my speech for more than 10 minutes, just to prove you and just to instigate you to take the road untaken. I cannot suggest you a universal panacea of fixing this entire education system. It'll be unrealistic because you all have different characters. You all have different characters, different interests, and different things that you want to do in the future. So ultimately, to become a pioneer is to make your different characters a strength that nobody else has, to be creative and courageous in developing those traits. So I cannot design you the road for which you should go. You should find your own road and design it by your own way. Pioneer. Thank you.